Here, I want to talk about the process of how I self diagnosed myself as autistic. Now, I have been professionally diagnosed as autistic, but I knew for years before this professional diagnosis that I was, in fact, autistic for various reasons. I want to share this because there's a lot of people online who are self diagnosing, and strictly speaking, it is not valid. You can be completely right, and it could make sense to self diagnose rather than get a professional diagnosis. I just want to go through the steps I went through because I was right about it, and I see many people who don't seem to be correct about what they're saying just based off the reasons they give. Because honestly, a lot of the symptoms of being autistic are just common. Sometimes it's just in severity. Maybe everyone does stim. It's a human thing to want to stim. When you get anxious, it just helps to move around. And it's just easier for autistic people to stim, for instance. So point being is, I think there's a lot of Gen Zers out there that act like autistic millennials. In many ways, we're similar. The things that kind of upset Gen Zers socially just seems to be autistic. And I'm not using that in a derogatory way. I'm just saying that a lot of Gen Zers have anxiety when it comes to being around other people. And there's a good reason, I think, why so many people who are young are diagnosing themselves as autistic. I think it has to do with the internet, of course, but honestly, it's like at the intro level stuff. So I started somewhere. I started realizing it when I reviewed stuff in the past. Okay, I've always had trouble fitting in. I was like the best player on my soccer team. I didn't talk to anyone, didn't connect with anyone for the most part. At all. I didn't want to be there in the end because it was a team sport and I was an individual. I like to do things solo a lot more than with a team. See, this was the case in a lot of places. At my job, at school, depending on my mood. It's just, it depended. And I just always felt like I didn't belong anywhere. Even when I had friends, they would all share secrets with each other, never with me. Never with me. I've always noticed that. I walk around awkward. In fact, I was the fastest kid on my soccer team, but I'd run like a duck with my hands by my side. Just, motor skills were different. The way I talked was different. My facial expressions were different. And, yeah, I was just different. And so I think a lot of younger people kind of stop at this level. Oh, I must be autistic. Everyone feels this way at some point. Everyone feels like they've been excluded. Everyone feels like others talk to them in a way that kind of looks past who they are. It seems like no one's ever understood me. Everyone probably feels that way. So, we gotta go deeper than this. That's what I'm trying to say. You start here and realize, man, I feel anxious around people. I find it hard to find things to say. I only really like to talk about my special interests, and so on and so forth. You know, that's getting a little deeper. Do you have special interests? Do you just like to focus on the same things all day, every day? How many trends out there do you just not care about? This is kind of what I started doing. It's like, when skateboarding was my obsession, I couldn't give a fuck about going to a party with my friends. I would, but I couldn't give a fuck about it. In fact, I was just like, God damn it. God damn it. Alright, fine. Fine, I'll go. They all wanted to go and sleep with girls. That's what they cared about. I don't know. I just didn't care. I did not care. In fact, I just didn't want to almost. I don't know. It took me a while to be like a 15-year-old who wants to do the normal things. It was like almost delayed. Like, seriously. I was very adult in certain ways and very immature in certain ways. And that's pretty autistic in my mind. Meaning, it's like, I think a lot of autistic people have a lot of gifts and deficits. And that's kind of what that is to some degree. This kind of led me to think that maybe you are autistic. Like, why'd you watch Nickelodeon so long, dude? Like, why? Why'd you like to watch it so long? Like, you should have been one to have sex with girls. That's what most teenagers do. They don't want to play with Legos. But there I was, being however the hell I was there. Now, those last few things I think are more common for adults to do. So that's maybe why a lot of early 20-year-olds are thinking of themselves to be autistic when maybe they aren't. Um, but I digress from that. So, we're digging a little bit deeper here. It's like, all right, you never belong, you never this, you never that. But then, what really jumped out to me was the fact that when I was in first grade, I got held back for how much I struggled. I struggled to talk to people. I wouldn't play with anyone at first. My teacher would yell at me, get on my case about not playing with the other kids. I would just sit there and watch them play, and one day she made me go play with them. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. They were all screaming, chasing lizards, and I was just following them, like, with my hand behind my back, just like, I don't know what to do. I don't think they even noticed I was there. See, I like chasing lizards, just by myself, not with them. I didn't need to scream in a group of boys. Like, I don't know, it just seemed stupid to me back then. I didn't like the noise. Probably autism. So, I just realized, like, I struggled early in life. And autistic people are known to mask. That was before you knew how to mask. And I did get better. I got a lot better. But that really jumped out to me. It's like, alright, we have these things already as a background and a foundation, and then you struggled early on. This didn't just pop up when I was a teenager and everyone's changing and now I feel out of place. I felt out of place by default. The first day of preschool orientation, I felt out of place. So that kind of suggested this is intrinsic. This is something you felt and continued to feel to some degree. Not as bad, but it was there. Because, yeah, again, I had friends, but they wouldn't treat me like the other friends I felt like. Even my best friend. It was just like, I just felt not as included as other people. I don't know. So, that's a vague feeling. But let's go ahead and go a little deeper. So I kind of alluded to the fact that the sound would get to me. Sound has always gotten to me. Textures. I could maybe do this one day and show if I don't like picking up potatoes in the grocery store because their texture. It's just like, if I rub two potatoes together, I'm already getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Jesus. I'll have goosebumps for sure. Growing up, I would always get these feelings, like my tags would scratch me, and it would remind me of getting like a booster shot for some reason. Like whenever I'd get up out of the car, I didn't know what was happening, but it was a very common feeling. Now I know it's the textures. So I had sensitivities to things. I also had some undersensitivities. For instance, heat pain doesn't really hurt me as much, I don't think. We've tested it before. I've had a friend who has a shallow affect challenge me to holding onto a hot object, and he's just like, there's something wrong there. There's something wrong there. Like, something neurologically not right. So, there's like, past the feelings of, feeling a little bit ostracized socially, you also have sensitivities. A lot of sensitivities with sensory issues. So, that was there. Okay. Alright. So, I did get held back because I struggled so much in first grade. So much. It was so overwhelming being in that classroom. Fast forward, I never studied in elementary school, middle school, high school for the most part, but I did well. I just didn't think that was for me. The academics were already just off the table based off getting held back. I didn't take it lightly, let's just say that much. Okay, so, get to college. All the friends I was friends with went to rehab for the most part, and I was just left there like, what do I do with life now? Better try something new. I went to college and I started studying. Right away, I was just learning so much, retaining so much. Like, the people I'd study with would just forget things within a week, and I would remember it the whole semester, if not longer. Like, the table of soluble ionic compounds in Chem 151, I remembered for years and years and years and years, and the people I was around couldn't remember it, period. And I really think that's a trait of being autistic, just having a memory that's superior in a lot of ways. My autobiographical memory is just way better than most friends. Like, I've asked people before, because I'll recall an event, and they're just surprised I remember so much from that day. I'm like, yeah, we did this, and then afterwards we did this, that, chronological order, knowing that we did these things all in the same day. And I ask them, when you remember events, is it just like kind of scattered around randomly? Like you don't know which one happened before the other? And they say, yeah, basically. And it's just like, this is probably because I'm autistic. Okay, good memory, stuff like that, being awkward, feeling ostracized, sensitivity, and then having an intelligence that was overlooked and then excelled in college. Having this sort of spiky behavior where you're really good at certain things and really bad at certain things. Being a fish that is judged for not climbing the tree and not being able to swim. That's what I was. And in many ways, I think that's what a lot of autistic people are. Okay, so had all these feelings. What I ended up doing is I read a lot of research papers. Research papers which weren't just behavioral but also physical, like physiology. For instance, it made a lot of sense to me that the number of synapses per neuron is greater in autistic individuals. Why? Well, oversensitivities. Right then and there. Being able to remember things. Maybe other issues associated with that as well. Because I feel like I'm at a deficit in many areas. And that's another thing. It's like a lot of people who self-diagnose act like autism's a Pokemon power or something. They neglect to say that the way that others, so people don't understand me very well. That's how it always has felt. And you feel like everyone else understands each other way better than you understand them. That's how I felt as well for a lot of my life. At least they relate to each other better. At least that much. And you do feel like you're just missing out on a lot of things. Now, I guess I'll just mention a couple more things. Trends never really mattered to me. Like in middle school, I was miserable by how much everyone cared about what trends were cool or not. It just bugged me. Like existential crisis sort of being bugged. It's like, alright, there's no free will. Everyone's a robot. Everyone's just here. Am I a robot? What the heck? What am I not realizing about myself? You know, a lot of stuff there. But besides the point, the trend never really mattered to me. Trends never mattered. Okay. So I started reading more about autism, research papers, personal experiences, as well as watching lectures on YouTube. And over time, it just started to make more and more sense. I didn't want a TikTok video that said, do you listen to music? You might be autistic. Yeah, that's just a human trait at that point, which a lot of traits on autism are, but it's like, yeah, autistic people listen to music. But me, personally, I'll listen to a song and like 1 minute of that song, and I'll listen to that 1 minute of that song over and over. Over and over. More than 40 times. Like, over and over and over and over and over. Depending on my mood and what's going on in my life, I've listened to just a snippet of a song for 2 hours. Backcountry, the very ending of it, for Avenged Sevenfold. I went through an autistic burnout, and I just listened to that end part over and over and over. The very, very end of that song, that's not even in the music video, but point being, it's very repetitive. And I've seen a lot of repetition in my video games, my life in general, my thought process. Makes me susceptible to rumination, and of course the treatment that I felt I get from others. Now, there's many other traits out there that I'm not going to be able to share, such as having a strong sense of justice. I realized that aided to the rumination, feeling like this is supposed to be this way, and it's not that way. I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Okay, I had a lot of bad friends who treated me not good. I'm not going to justify that. I'm just going to say that I let the bad behavior slide. Oftentimes, we are trying to fit into the neurotypical world. Our boundaries are more pliable in some ways. At least we try. You step over my boundary, I try to move it for you so that you don't step over it. I did that a lot. And that turns out to be somewhat of an autistic trait. So you can dig deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And get me talking about physics, and sometimes I don't stop. I'm not the best at physics anymore. That's what I feel like, because I actually wasted a lot of time in my grad school career being depressed in autistic burnout. And that was a very life-changing event. The autistic burnout is what really solidified I'm autistic. Yeah, for sure. I feel like how I did before I could mask in first grade again. Point being, I had a lot of areas disconnected. And it's like, if you know me, it's like, who goes to the skate park and is one of the best skaters there. He doesn't want to talk to anyone. That never happens. Usually the best skater is like looked up to and everyone wants to talk to them, which people probably did. It's just I would put up a wall and not want to. I don't know, just certain times in my life I have been able to isolate myself in a unusual sort of way on top of everything else. And so in the end I just got pushed to the fact that yeah, you're probably autistic. It's like it's not normal to not study your whole life and then jump into physics and do great at it. It's not normal. That sounds kind of autistic, even though not all autistic people are good at that sort of thing. I feel like when you are the way I was, it probably means you have autism. It's like you had a natural gift there you never really polished and made better. So, there's just so many things. There's so many things in life that. And on top of it, my mom tried to get me diagnosed with autism when I was an infant because I was not making eye contact. I didn't start talking until after I was 2. I remember before I could start talking. Like it just it just keeps going and keeps going, and then at a certain point, it's like, I am approaching that autistic diagnosis myself. So I think a lot of people just feel like they're outcasts and don't fit into anything, therefore they're autistic, and there's a lot of reasons to feel that way, and I think that's an incredibly common feeling in this day and age. But that's kind of just a synopsis of my realization that I myself am autistic, and it was no easy feat. It took a lot of research past those initial feelings I had. So if you do have those initial feelings, you need to go deeper. You need to go deeper than that and look up more symptoms, look up more experiences on Quora or wherever you want to look. It's just, it takes time to figure out, and then in the end, you can't diagnose yourself. You can only be right about it, but you're not diagnosing yourself with autism, you're realizing you're autistic.